Some guys win the lottery. Some guys win at love. And some guys think they've won because they managed to sneak around with another man's wife. Today on Our Space, someone's luck is running out. The wife's affair partner thought he won, until I exposed him to his wife and got him fired. I've been back and forth on whether I should even share this. Something about telling the story feels like a way of getting some control back into my life, even if it's through a throwaway account. If nothing else, hopefully, it will help me make sense of everything that's happened. Simple version, I found out my wife was cheating on me. That's the long story short of it. But the deeper version is that my wife and her affair partner were using his position to take advantage of me, my family, and even his own family, for the better part of a year. There are a ton of victims in this, and that's what hurts the most. That's why I can't just forget it and move on. Something needs to be done. Back to the beginning of it all, I'm 38 years old. My wife, Emily, is 36. We've been married for 10 years. A few weeks ago, I would have told you she was a devoted mother to our 6-year-old son, Jason. Now, I'm not so sure. We lived a simple life. We had everything we needed, as far as I was concerned. I worked a good job and spent as much time with my family as I could. Financially, we were pretty comfortable. My wife and I both worked, and all of our needs were covered. I did my best to be an active father and husband. We tried to have date nights once a week, though it usually ended up being twice a month. It's not always easy to find the time, but I made sure to give Jason enough attention. I did homework with him, played with him, and took him out skating whenever I could. I had friends who grew up with neglectful fathers, and I knew how much that messed them up even as adults. I wasn't going to let that happen to my son. And that's what makes this whole thing so hard to swallow. I thought I was doing everything right. God knows I wasn't perfect, but I was putting in 100%. I thought I was being a good father. A good husband. I thought Emily appreciated that, and that we were in this together. I thought a lot of things. And they were all wrong. It shouldn't have taken me by surprise. There were signs, but I overlooked them. Times she'd pulled away early when I kissed her. How she no longer looked forward to our date nights, and sometimes even canceled them. How she'd recently been too tired for sex, but somehow had the energy to stay up all night on her phone. In fact, for the past 2 months, there had been no real intimacy between us at all. I blamed all of that on stress. What gave it all away was a sign that was too big to ignore. I was looking for something in our bedroom, I can't even remember what it was anymore, when a bit of blue lace caught my eye in her underwear drawer. I immediately knew it had to be new, and I pulled it out. We'd been married a decade. I know her wardrobe as well as I know mine, especially the things she never wore for me. And this sheer, lacy number was something I had never seen. There's no way I'd forget that. She hadn't bought lingerie for us in years. I had this odd icy sensation in my chest, but I didn't want to jump to the worst conclusion right away. I stood there for a moment, still holding it in my hands, trying to rationalize it. Maybe she'd bought it for me, and just hadn't worked up the nerve to surprise me yet. That was the only thing I could come up with that made any sense. But even that didn't sit right. She'd shown zero interest in sex for the past few months, so why would she be planning some sort of sexy surprise? I was still trying to convince myself she wasn't cheating when I stuffed the lingerie back into the drawer. But I couldn't fool myself. A new piece of lingerie she'd never worn for me, when she'd stopped sleeping with me altogether? As much as I wanted to deny it, it started dawning on me, she must be cheating. The thought of it made my head spin. That icy feeling in my chest came back stronger. If she was cheating, then our perfect life was over, as we knew it. But I needed more than just suspicion. I needed proof, hard proof, before I did anything. I decided to be smart about it. I wasn't going to rush in with accusations. That would just give her a chance to deny it and cover her tracks. I needed something she couldn't talk her way out of. So, I started watching more closely. And once I was looking for it, the signs became even more obvious. Emily was careful, but not careful enough. She left early for work. Some days, I noticed she was even eager to head out. She started dressing just a bit too nicely for work, wearing the better dresses and the expensive shoes she used to reserve for our dates. That's when I started to suspect she was having an affair with a coworker. I decided to check her phone. But suddenly, she was obsessively protective of it. It was always on her or within reach. Getting it while she slept? Not possible, because she'd started sleeping with it under her pillow, which was another red flag. Now I was convinced she was cheating, and it became my mission to get proof. Over the next week, I bided my time and looked for an opening to get my hands on her phone. It wasn't easy. She didn't keep it out of her sight for more than a few minutes at a time. Even if I got it, I was afraid I wouldn't have enough time to find what I was looking for. I actually considered hiring a private investigator, because of how challenging it was becoming. But then, I got lucky. One night, she fell asleep watching a movie on the couch. Her phone was on her chest, and I gently picked it up, careful not to wake her. If she woke up, I would have lied and said I was going to charge her phone for her. But she didn't stir a bit. I immediately went to the bedroom with her phone, and I could feel the anxiety setting in. That same icy feeling in my chest returned. I was about to confirm whether my wife was cheating on me or not. I already had a strong feeling I knew what I was about to see, but part of me still held out hope that I could be wrong. She'd changed her phone's lock code, but we both had fingerprint access to each other's phones. She hadn't removed mine. So, I got in. I almost dropped the phone. She had fallen asleep texting some guy, Mike. And one of the last messages she sent him was a photo of her privates, taken right on the couch. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to cry. The first thought that went through my head was what she'd done to our family. Had she even thought of me? Of Jason? I pulled myself together and steeled myself to keep going through the messages. I needed to get evidence, and I might not have had much time before she woke up and found her precious phone missing. I scrolled through, refusing to look at the disgusting pictures he had sent her, when something caught my eye. They were talking about meeting at work. At first, I thought they were just co-workers. But I soon realized, this Mike was her boss. They'd been meeting up in his office and after hours. And they'd been doing this for almost a year. There were thousands of messages. Hundreds of photos. Almost too much for me to go through. At some point, I stopped reading and just started screenshotting everything and sending it to myself. I knew I already had enough, but I wanted to get everything. I wanted to protect myself fully. I had sent about 6 months worth of evidence to myself when Emily walked in on me. I didn't care at that point. I wasn't doing anything wrong, and I wasn't afraid to be caught. I could see the unease on her face. She'd probably feared the worst when she couldn't find her phone beside her, and now, her worst fear had come true. I expected her to cry, or apologize. But all she did was ask, "Why do you have my phone?" I didn't answer that question, because the answer was obvious. I just said, "You know what I found on here, right?" She ignored that and just said her phone was private. I wanted to laugh, despite everything. Private? I asked if it was right to send nudes to her boss just because her phone was private. I pushed on before she could speak again and asked if it was okay to sleep with her boss, with her husband and child at home, because her phone was private. She didn't say a word. Her lips were pressed into a tight line. I scrolled back to the nude she'd sent her boss and tossed the phone to her. When she saw the picture, her eyes widened, and she said she could explain. She said she never meant for it to go this far. That it didn't mean anything at first, and that things spiraled out of control. Out of control? I asked. Did you not have control of your hands or your phone when you lifted your t-shirt for your boss while your son was in the other room? The mention of Jason seemed to trigger something in her. She raised her voice slightly and said she was doing it for all of us. I was speechless. She was screwing her boss, for us? I told her I couldn't see how Jason and I could possibly have benefited from this. That's when she told the truth for the first time that night. She told me that her boss had hinted there was a promotion in store for her if she slept with him. She'd gone ahead with it. And now, nearly a year later, the mythical promotion still hadn't happened. I was angry before. But now, I was just disappointed. I told her I never imagined she could be so stupid. She slept with her boss for a promotion? She should have sued the company and found another job. I told her what I really thought. She'd wanted to do it the whole time. The promotion excuse was just convenient. We weren't strapped for cash. We didn't need a higher income. So there was no justifying exchanging sex for advancement. She didn't like hearing that. She started crying, insisting that it wasn't like that. She claimed she felt pressured, that it was the only way to advance in her career. I didn't buy it. Why didn't she come to me if she felt pressured? Why would she keep it going for a year? Why the late night messages? Why the nudes? Why the "I can't wait to feel you" texts? She started stammering out some excuse, but I stopped her. I told her to save her breath. There was no working through infidelity this deliberate. Our marriage was already over. She tried to bargain. Said she'd quit her job. Said she'd block Mike. Said we could work through this. But it was too late. Any of those things could have been a solution, before she slept with him. Now? I was totally lost. I didn't want my marriage to be over. But I also didn't think I could forgive her. Divorce was likely the only option. But how do I tell my son? Her claim that she did it for all of us was pure delusion. Cheating is never an act of love or sacrifice. It's selfish. It's reckless. And if she truly felt pressured, she should have come to me. She should have fought back. Handled it with integrity. Update: things have been crazy since my last update. I got started with the divorce process immediately. That didn't make things easier. Life just got more complicated, especially since we had a young son caught in the middle of it. Splitting custody of Jason is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I love him so much, and I never wanted him to grow up in a broken home. But the alternative, growing up with parents who don't love each other, would have been worse. But there was something else eating at me. Mike, her boss, her affair partner, had walked away from this mess with no consequences. That wasn't right. He got to use my wife and string her along with false promises, having fun the whole way. Meanwhile, I lost my marriage. My son lost a stable home. Even my wife, despite her role in all of this, was left with regret. But he was the only one who wasn't hurting. I'm sure he was laughing his butt off, thinking he'd won. I couldn't let that slide. My first plan was to report him to his office. But I changed my mind. I didn't want to do anything rash that could affect how the divorce turned out. I was fighting for custody of Jason. I was battling against alimony. A reckless move could endanger my chances of things coming out my way. There would always be time to report him after the divorce was finalized. But as things turned out, I wouldn't have to wait that long. I came up with another plan to get back at him. I was going to tell his wife everything. I'd never met Emily's boss in person, but I knew a bit about him. I knew he was married, and I knew enough to find him online. I found his wife, Anna, after a little digging. Her social media was full of photos of their happy family. Mike, Anna, and 2 kids, smiling and laughing. Mike, the perfect family man. The attentive dad. Seeing those posts made me mad. Especially when I thought about what he'd done to my family. I was going to show his wife exactly what kind of man he really was. I gathered all the screenshots I had. I even included some of the photos they had sent to each other, though I made sure to heavily censor them. Just enough to give her an idea of what was going on, without getting myself in trouble for sharing sensitive material. Then I sent everything over to her, along with a message introducing myself and explaining the whole messed up situation. I took my time. I made sure I worded everything just right. I didn't want to come across as bitter or vengeful. She was just as much a victim in all of this as I was. I just wanted to lay out the facts. It took half a day before I got a response. I guess she'd taken some time to process everything first. Her message simply asked if she could call me. I sent her my number, and she called within 10 minutes. She didn't sound angry, just hollow. She asked about me, about my wife, and how we knew her husband. She wanted to know how long it had been going on, how I'd found out, and whether I'd confronted him. At the end of the call, she thanked me for bringing this to her attention. I felt a little bad for her and told her I was always just a call away if she ever needed anything, even just someone to listen. She thanked me again and hung up. I didn't hear anything from her after that. I figured she was handling things on her own. I hoped she was. Some people forgive cheating spouses, hoping they'll change. But I was hoping she would do the right thing. Not just because I wanted revenge, but because she didn't deserve to be stuck with someone like Mike. A few days later, Anna reached out to me again, and told me everything. She had confronted Mike. He denied it, of course. Claimed all the screenshots were faked. But when she told him that she'd asked me for the uncensored versions to prove it was really him, he caved. He admitted it. He was guilty. And he immediately started begging her to forgive him. I was relieved when she told me she didn't forgive him. She had already moved out with the kids. She was talking to a lawyer. preparing for divorce. But she still wasn't done. She actually laughed and said, "He's not only going to lose me, he's going to lose his job too." She'd gotten in touch with people at their company and reported him. Apparently, the company had a strict policy against relationships between superiors and subordinates. An investigation was launched immediately. Mike was suspended while they looked into it. It didn't take long for them to act. Anna texted me a week later, he'd been fired. I couldn't help but smile when I read that. He hadn't gotten away with it after all. I still see Emily pretty regularly, at drop-offs, pickups, and in court. Things are still cold between us. She's apologized more times than I can count. But her regret doesn't change anything. The damage is done. She's never mentioned anything about her boss being fired. I'm sure she knows I was behind it, but there's no point in bringing it up. It's not like I'd feel sorry for him. And it's definitely not like I'd apologize. We're still in the middle of the divorce settlement. And I know I have a long road ahead of me. It'll be a while before Jason and I have any sense of normalcy again. And a very long time before I'm ready to open my heart to someone else. But I'm just glad I didn't roll over and let Emily and her boss walk all over me. They ruined my family. And I made sure they both paid for it. Emily's apologies? Hilarious. That ship has sailed and sunk. But anyway, you're an absolute legend. You're absolutely right. You didn't just sit back and take it. You made sure the universe balanced the scales. It's frustrating when people like Mike think they can walk away without consequences. But you didn't act out of bitterness. You simply made sure the truth came to light. And in the end, both his wife and his workplace held him accountable for his actions. What do you make of this? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below, and thank you for joining us today on our space. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next story.